Whether you're a life coach, therapist, biohacker, invested in wellness, or in the healthcare profession, if you have an intention to work in psychedelic spaces, you're in the right place then. If you're called, get involved. But first, get informed. Let's talk the 4 N's: intake, intention, in-space integration, leading to deeper transformations. Psychedelic Coach Podcast, Todd Cole. Walk you through the process, it's all possible. Leave space for the follow-through. Most importantly, integration is not optional.
Welcome to the Psychedelic Coach Podcast. And before we move any further, I want you to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another episode of this podcast. What's up, y'all? My name is Ty Whitty.
My name is Cole Whitty.
Hey, and we are here on the Psychedelic Coach Podcast. And today we're going to talk about psychedelics and that they're not the easy way through. There are many people who are talking a lot of stuff about psychedelics being the easy pill. Let's get this psychedelic situation going on and fix this trauma. Let's get this psychedelic happening and let's get this PTSD fixed and situated. And this has been a very dysfunctional way of looking at things. And I'm here to shake things up and offer people a different perspective on this stuff.
Mm-hmm. I love that this is the conversation today because even though I feel people say it over and over again, psychedelics are not a magic pill. It's not a magic pill. How many times have we had people go into an experience and go, yeah, but it didn't get rid of my trauma. I need to get rid of my trauma. So there is still, regardless of what you say, these expectations that people get that psychedelics are the answer. And not that it can't save you a lot of time as far as the realization of the work you need to do. It does not do the work that you have to do in order to grow. And so someone can come in, have an intense experience, emotionally challenging, even physiologically challenging, and then return back home to an environment that is still wrapped up in the old way. And honestly, we see health crashes, financial crashes, relationship crashes. Like you and I were joking around the other day that people even come to the Condor Approach training, and we're going to have to start doing a disclaimer. Like, we are not responsible for the degradation, ending of relationships, jobs, home situations, because when you start to challenge some of those ideas and when you start resolving things from the past, it changes your conscious awareness of what you're participating in. And the more awareness you have around what you're participating in, you start to see the trends of conditioning and trauma in your choices.
That's the thing, is we've got to be mindful of being part of an old trendy situation, which is our old medical industry, our old mental health, mental wellness industry. All of that is old stuff. And if we look to move psychedelics into that same type of space, we may get more of the same, or maybe more detrimental, more dysfunctional circumstances and situations, especially as we open up things to big pharma. A lot of psychedelic compounds are being created by big pharma and a lot of pharmaceutical companies all over the world. Canada has a lot of stuff happening with psychedelics right now, and people are having psychedelics shipped all over the place. And there are a lot of prescriptions that are getting ready to be written, and people don't have the space to integrate these things. And I think it's a tremendously important space for us to lean into a new way of actually seeing psychedelics. And it's not just an easy quick fix pill. And this is the thing that's been fed to people around traditional SSRIs, which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors or antidepressant medications. But listen, take this pill and everything's going to be better. You'll be fixed. And then we send people back to the environment that they were in, and that's dysfunction. I've been getting a lot of calls from people recently about, hey, listen, Ta, I spoke to this person and they're having these really significant issues around their mental health and all these things. And I told them, look, I had psychedelics and it helped me tremendously. And I think you should do psychedelics. And I'm like, pump your brakes, slow down. Let's reel it in, back it up. What's going on with this person? What kind of support system do they have? What's going on in their household? What is their trauma circumstances? People are not looking at this stuff. And this is an issue. And this is part of the issue with me with going into your primary care physician who's there just to do, to do physicals and just do a general situation over you, prescribing you antidepressant medications and sending you back to the environment that you were in the first place that supported you being in a quote unquote depressive space or being anxious, or giving people anxiolytics, which are anti-anxiety medications, and not talking to people about their environment and what's going on. And this is why I believe psychedelic informed coaching is so important.
Yeah, what you just said, the imagery I was getting in my mind is someone is leaving a home environment that's unsafe a lot of the time because whether it's unsafe because of violence or because of ideas, finances, there's lots of reasons an environment is unsafe. And then you take someone, say, to a retreat, they find a level of safety, you help them treat and heal these internal wounds. But part of the reason the healing can take place is because they're outside of the environment that is supporting and keeping the wounds open. So we treat the wounds. Let's say that they were like a burn victim from their life. They've had all these burns from family situation, traumas, dramas. They go to a retreat. They get healing. The wounds get cleaned, but then they still need to finish healing, and you send them back to a house on fire. Yeah. And so it's not actually necessarily helping all the time, because once you know what you know and you can't unknow it, we can see that actually create more turmoil in someone because their coping strategies and mechanisms don't work anymore. Their adaptations that were helping them survive don't work anymore. And part of being a responsible advocate and educator in the psychedelic space, and if you're telling people about psychedelics, you're an educator. This is the opportunity to lean in and start to give people tools like the Condor Approach book, right? $12 on Amazon, coming out in like a week and a half. But you can pre-order it now or get the free version or free courses or send them this podcast. Because if they don't come up with a plan and strategies and also understand that in going into these experiences, they can have a lot of emotional things can come up. And even if they feel resolve around them, when they go home, if they're in an environment that isn't used to the new them, it's going to do everything it can to pull them back into position to the old way.
Yeah. Yeah. And this, I think that a huge part of what my drive behind this is the old way. Being in a hospital situation and watching time after time, people get sent home to go back to their environments, and their environments were caustic. And they're like, I don't understand why my blood pressure won't go down. I'm taking these medications, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but they keep going back to this same environment. And it's not just the environment that they live in. When the body's environment goes back into that old place, its programming comes online to function in the way that old place was. The body's been designed around that old place. And so this has to be an environmental situation. And it's not just about the psychedelic experience. Psychedelics are not an easy road out. And, we were just talking about, we went for a walk this morning and we were talking about electroconvulsive therapy, right? And somebody came to me and was like, I have this person who their son is in a rough space and they're going to send him for shock therapy. And I was like, no, you need to do psychedelics, right? Have you considered psychedelics? They didn't say you need to do, they said, have you considered psychedelics? And I was like, listen, slow down. What's going on with the person before we start sending them to these spaces? We have to figure out what's going on with this person's environment. Because if we just talk about therapeutic spaces for the person and they go back to the old environment, it's just going to be more of the same or different issues to come up. So this is something that I've seen over and over again. It's not an easy pill, one trick pony type of situation.
You hear people talk about set and setting for the psychedelic space and the experience itself and how important your mindset, your body set, and the environment is. But you don't hear people talk the same about the home environment someone's going back to. What is the set and setting? They're leaving with this wet cement of new ideas, thoughts, realizations, and you're taking them back to an environment where there's people that are already prepared to carve their name into the wet cement, to put their paw print, their hand print, and leave their mark. And so there are times that someone only has enough financial resource to go to the retreat and go back home, but the environment's not safe. And so if we were to really look on a more bio-individual level of what someone's going through and what would be the best case scenario for them, it might not be going to a retreat for a week. It might be going to a 2-day retreat and giving themselves 3 days afterwards of isolated integration from their home environment before returning home, so that they can come up with more of a system and strategy for what will support look like. Do I have coaches or community that's not in my home environment that I can reach out to, that I can communicate with? And looking on that spectrum, because so few people are considering the setting they're returning home to. And if someone is in a very heightened neuroplastic state, say they just did a ketamine session and then they're put into a car and sent home, because that's a common practice in the ketamine space, but they're in an environment where their body doesn't feel safe, or there's someone in the home that's been an aggressor and their body has its own instinctual intelligence, it can deepen some of those sensations of anxiety or losing control or not being embodied or inability to come back. There's other potentials that just we don't hear anyone talk about or even consider.
And it's time to start considering it. And this is why we have this movement. Integration is not optional, because integrating is not an option. How you integrate is the option. And this is, why I believe we're so passionate about this, is because we got to get the word out about this. Because being in the ER for as long as I was in the ER and watching this stuff over and over again, I lost hope for humanity. Before I started to explore psychedelics, I had this much zero hope for humanity. I was like, human beings are just hell bent on self-destruction and they can't see a way out. And I was starting to figure, look, I don't see a way out of this either. And so I had no hope for myself or anybody else. And in that space, in the psychedelic space, I actually learned that there was a different way. And that different way is to see things differently and to perceive the self differently. And if we keep using old systems to perceive the self, we're going to have more of the same. And I've heard in the past that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that's a lot of what we've been doing with our traditional wellness, our traditional healthcare situation, or sick care, or whatever you want to call it, doing the same thing and expecting different results. And I'm not interested in the psychedelic movement, the psychedelic renaissance being the same stuff, being the same type of renaissance we had with SSRIs. For me, that's not a renaissance. That's just a Band-Aid. And I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in people being able to lean into this. Listen, if you're going to do SSRIs, if you're going to do antidepressants, then you've got to integrate that stuff. And if your environment is not supporting it, if people around are not supportive of it, then we got to make some significant changes and shifts. This is why this mission is so important to me.
That's what brought us out of doing full-time facilitation into education, is because there were so few people that either had the experience or the mentors or the teachers we had, or the experience because of your nursing, my background in substance abuse education. Like, we had so many perspectives plus our own healing journeys that gave us an innate ability to translate how some of these things can show up, plus the experience of being a facilitator and seeing common threads and trends with people coming from certain backgrounds, certain traumatic experiences, certain childhood experiences. And the Condor Approach now, I think that's why I'm so excited that we're offering it in a more public, accessible standpoint, where it's not just for coaches anymore. Now there's 2 ways to come join us. You can come for a 3-day intensive where we're going to show you what's going on neurologically, physiologically, spiritually, how to translate the language in your body, signs of too much, signs of not enough, signs of what ally or what plant you could work with, and how to check in with yourself, how to take some of the advice of mentors or gurus or shaman or whoever and see if it's true for you. That, for me, is done through the felt sense in the body, through the intuition, and coupled and supported with instincts while understanding that your conditioning informs your instincts too.
That's
and
right.
So by understanding what constructs you've been participating in consciously or unconsciously, by having clarity around what you want, what serves you, and what are old expectations playing through of religion, family, social construct, gender dynamics, and who do I believe myself to be? Who is that future self that I have seen as a vision in my shamanic journeys? What is that version? What do I need to know, do, be, or understand to start to embody that version of me? And when we start to be able to do that for ourselves, we can support people around us. Even if we never officially take a coaching role as a career, everyone is coaching and supporting someone. And we need more folks out there that can be able to speak to it and explain it and describe it in terminology that the layperson could understand, that might be new to this work, never done this work, or considering starting.
Agreed. And like you always say, Cole, we're moving into a CPR type of situation with the way things are in the world, with mental health, with emotional health and wellness. And I'm speaking from the perspective of a nurse, and I know how important it is for a person who's fallen into cardiac arrest to have somebody there starting to work on them as soon as possible. And even if somebody doesn't know how to do CPR and they've seen somebody pushing on somebody's chest on TV, come push on my chest, please. Delete. Come push on my chest, please, because I want to be able to keep it moving, to stay on the planet and keep living into the next space. But this is the thing: is the more trained somebody is, the more potential I have to move into the next space, to be able to survive and thrive. Mm-hmm. And so this is why we want to train people, and this is why we are training, not want to. We are training people in this space. We are teaching people this, and we're teaching people to have sovereignty in the self, to be able to navigate your own nervous system, your own emotions, your own relationship with yourself, then the relationships with the things outside of you, so that you can actually influence through intention. We have an intention, and then you actually influence a transformation in the self and the environment around you to support what it is you're looking to do. Mm-hmm. And I believe that this is the most powerful work on the planet right now, the work that we're doing.
Agreed.
And I'm excited about it. And it's been a challenge being me and you in this work and spreading the word, but it's starting to really flourish. And I'm very excited about the people that we're working with, the people that are teaching people how to prepare for the potential of intense emotional and psychological experiences during psychedelics, during
how
psychedelic
to
journeys.
Them,
and how to,
all experiences can be integrated. Like for me, a bad trip is when there was physical harm, someone didn't consider something, whatever. A bad trip in a psychological standpoint, I believe they can all be I believe all experiences can be integrated. And so it's not that I don't believe there aren't bad trips. It's that there are very challenging experiences that even if you control everything and everything goes exactly as it quote unquote should, does not mean someone can't experience overwhelming sensations or visions or memory, to where there still has to be support and integration. And most people don't actually know what integration is. They think integration is the process after I put my feet in the earth and take deep breaths and hug a tree, which, yeah, those can be parts. But how do you know that there's signs that you're not integrating well, that you need additional support? What is a contraction after a big expansion? Do you know that you can, after a big expansion, contract inward, which for me is the invitation to expand inward. You've had this outward expansion of information, and it's like the heartbeat or the breath. There also has to be a contraction of the heart to send that blood through the body so that it can receive blood again. That is the ebb and flow, the flux. So for anyone listening right now, Ta, what do you wish everyone would know that was, let's just say, newer, less than a year in psychedelics, that don't really understand what integration is? How would you describe what it is to that person so they could even start to know it's a thing?
Yeah. So integration, right? For somebody who's just really learning, integration is wholeness. It is bringing things together, right? When I am separated into a mind, into a body, into my identity, into my microbiome, into my emotions. I'm fragmented into these different spaces. When I bring all those things together, they are integrated. They're disintegrated and then they're integrated. And when they're integrated, they're whole, right? We are whole as an individual. When all of my parts are functioning together as one, they're integrated. And I don't need anything from anyone. And I don't need to take anything from anyone. I don't need to hurt anyone. I'm full within myself. The environment is supporting me. I integrate with the environment and I actually become one with the environment. I actually become one with the people around me. One in the sense of collaboration and how would you call it? Commingling with the environment and the things around me. I am in harmony with everything that's going on around me. Integration is that. And so when a person has a psychedelic experience, the psychedelic experience can actually disintegrate the old patterns that may be keeping them stuck. And so those patterns get disintegrated. And so to reintegrate in a different way, in a way that suits, in a way that functions the individual, is integration. And so that's how I would explain it to somebody who's just learning about this stuff. It's like you have a sandcastle on the beach. The sandcastle is all the grains of sand integrated into a castle. And if somebody walks over and dumps water on it or kicks it over, it becomes disintegrated. Now, what do? Do we get more water and we patch up the hole, or we rebuild a new situation? We put it back together and we integrate it. And that's wholeness. And so if the person who kicked over my sandcastle is angry and something's going on with them and they're threatening to kick the sandcastle that I just repaired, how do we find out what this person needs? When I'm whole in myself, the person knocking over my sandcastle might be a little frustrating. It might be a little daunting, but I got to find out what this other person needs, because this other person is also part of the world. And so also and they're part of my environment, and the environment is starting to disrupt my sandcastle. And so how do I make sure that this person's whole? How do I make sure I'm whole first? And how do I make sure this person's whole?
So that they stop kicking over your sandcastle. So that
they stop kicking over my sandcastle, right? And so I can sit here and be mad at them and I can fight with them and all of this stuff. But if they keep coming to kick my sandcastle, they're not, something about them, something inside of them is not whole. And something is unsafe, or something is crying out for attention, whatever it is. And do I have the bandwidth and the space to create an environment that supports all of us? And so this is the thing. When I'm whole, I can have the patience. When I'm not starving, when I'm not in financial deficit, when I'm not in deficit of love, I can make the space for another human being. And most of us are in this fight or flight. Most of us are in this place where we're not safe. And so we have to go and push everybody else aside in order to get the foundations. And so it's get the foundations of safety together, start to learn what connection is for you. Then we can create fulfillment, because a sandcastle is a fulfillment space, right? To have a castle in and of itself is a luxury space. And so we want to be able to have food, water, shelter, family, connection, love. And then we move into the space of luxury, which would be fulfillment, like having a house, having $1 million in the bank, and so on. And once we have that fulfillment space, we can support other people. And so that would be integration.
Yeah, and that brings us back to what we were saying at the beginning, right? You can have someone come and do this healing work with you where you help them integrate and rebuild their sandcastle and bringing all those parts and pieces together. But if you're sending them back to an environment of people that are ready to kick their sandcastle back down verbally, emotionally, physically, how long is the effects really going to last? And then a person is forced to journey over and over again just to buy some time, and it's not a bad thing. But at some point, if you recognize that it is the environment, you keep rebuilding the sandcastle where the tide comes in, it might be time to build the castle somewhere else. There's so many times where someone doesn't want to leave their home environment because where they live, they don't want to leave the people, or they feel like if they grow on that they're leaving people behind and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, if you have to keep rebuilding your sandcastle, your life, you can't help anybody else in theirs. And so sometimes it's recognizing, am I more loyal to the people, the systems, the poverty, the situation, the community than I am to myself, and putting my mask on first, getting myself fortified so that I can come back and help you build, because I'm not so caught up in drowning and having to rebuild mine all the time. So I'm going to move where I'm building my life, where I'm forming a partnership, what I can control, whatever that might be, because as beautiful and powerful as these master teachers are in plant, animal, fungi form, the spirit molecules, without the action, it doesn't do anything. It shows you what is possible. It can illuminate the path. It can't walk it for you. And that comes with some hard decisions, some tough conversations, and some big, heavy lifts at times to get a different life.
Yeah. And so this really is an amazing conversation. Psychedelics are not the easy way out. They're not the easy road. And we can look at it as that and put it in the convenience box and say, I'm going to get fixed. I need to. This is what some people come to us all the time. I want a journey. I want to fix this situation.
I just need to get rid of this.
This the magic pill. Let's have these mushrooms and it'll fix things. Let's have this MDMA. Let's have this LSD. Let's have this ayahuasca. I'm going to go to the jungle and have this blowout experience and I'm going to fix my PTSD. Good luck. I'm wishing you the best. And I'm actually wishing you success in having that blowout experience and scrubbing that PTSD out. Then when you go back to the environment that caused your PTSD or that is supporting your PTSD or supporting you being in the victim of whatever happened to get you into that space, I'd like to see what happens. And this is where, Cole, I believe it's time for us to really start leaning into getting real about this stuff and talking to people. And this, stop the magic pill. This is not a magic pill, y'all. It's not a magic pill. There is work involved in this, and it doesn't have to be drudging and you're beating rocks with a hammer in a courtyard somewhere. This can be fun work. This can be an exploration. It doesn't have to be.
And it's
doesn't have to be labor
sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it's heavy lifting.
And that's where the mental support and community is so important, because no one can do the work for you. But having support and community and people to remind you and people to help give other tools, it's more of letting go of the suffering to do and make some of the choices. Yeah. It's making the decisions and being with the discomfort, walking with the fear, not trying to get rid of fear so you can make choices. Part of it is actually being able to bring it with you and know that the only way out is through. There's no more avoiding. There's no more bypassing. There's no more skipping. Psychedelics don't skip things. They bring clarity, understanding, so you can prioritize and know how important your choices are. So, anyone listening, and if you're telling people like, you should do psychedelics, I hope that you will also bring in the aspects of when it's not easy. And if you're listening right now and you've only had a handful of experiences or only a few years and they've all been light and love and beautiful, then my love, you haven't done the work yet. You have been gifted a tremendous amount of love from the universe. And the longer you stay in this work, like Goddess Jocelyn said on a live that she had recorded on Sunday or yesterday, she said, look, I still get nervous when I go into Journey. And I'm like, yeah, me too, because I know that regardless of being in the work 15 years at this point, it's not always roses and butterflies. Facing yourself is never, it's simple. It is not easy. And sometimes it's rainbows and butterflies and unicorns and gratitude and wow, I'm so blessed. And other times it's I hate myself. I didn't realize how bad it was. Look at my physical health or my boundaries or whatever. And it can be a wild card sometimes. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not.
And emotions are going to come up. And society has been teaching people to avoid emotions, that emotions are bad and all this other stuff. This is a huge part of what we talk about in the Condor Approach is your emotions are going to come up. Your stuff's going to come up. Your safety issues are going to come up. This is all stuff that has been hidden and pushed out of sight. This is shadow work. All of this is shadow work. And so when we shine a light on the shadow stuff, things are going to come up to be expressed. Things are going to come up to be explored. And they may not be easy. They may be easy for you, but they may not be easy for the people around you. And if your environment gets disintegrated on your, in response to your expansion, things are going to come up. And how do you navigate that? You know, when you want to trigger people, get happy and go to a miserable environment and get happy. You're going to trigger things. Things are going to come up and people are going to not want you to be there. What are you smiling about all the time? You're all happy. Why are you all happy all the time? I've had people do that to me, and there are going to be changes, and you may have to move away from people. And we've had people have situations where their relationships shifted, their relationships with people in their lives, with their kids, with their spouses, with their parents, with their money, with their careers. Things change. And when you realize that you've been holding on to stuff that's dysfunctional, this is where psychedelics the openings you have are not easy. So let's look at it. It's not a walk in the park. And so having a support system for your integration is tremendously important.
Yeah. Look, psychedelics can help you get some resolve. It can help to give you some aspects and parts of self so that you can heal them. I have had miraculous times where something big happened, but out of 15 years, there was maybe 4 that caused a whole system change in how I operate and how I function, and I would say a deeper spiritual or physical healing. But in the other, however many journeys in 15 years at this point, that they were things that took time. And psychedelics showed me how to accept my emotions, what they were trying to tell me, not skip, get rid of, or bypass them. And I think a lot of people are trying to find the easier way through, where it's, I'll do MDMA to mushrooms to this, to that, to make it easier on myself. And at some point, it's recognizing that part of the work is building your capacity to hold, accept, tolerate your emotions, not just get rid of them.
Amen. And this is what we teach in the Condor Approach, y'all. We have an amazing 5-day coming up for people who want to be coaches, and a 3-day coming up for people who just want to get into the methodology of teaching yourself. June 13th to the 17th. Coming up soon.
We're doing a promo that for $1,997 for the 3-day events. This is the non-coach. We have coaches come, but this is for the Condor Approach 3-day for the public. We're doing a promo this round where for $19.97, it gives you all 3 days, and you can bring a friend for $1. $1. $1.
$1.
So you can share an Airbnb. Stop playing. Because here's the thing. This is going to change the investment you make in every retreat you ever do moving forward, because you'll know how to uniquely integrate the experiences for your own model of the world, your own ethics, your own standards, which is the only true way that it's going to work for you. Otherwise, it's other people's projections, injections, and we're going to give you tools for you to guide yourself, for you to figure out what works for you. So thank you so much for tuning in today, y'all. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, share with a friend. Remember that psychedelics are not the easy way through. They might be simple, they might save you time, but that does not always mean that it's easy. And if you go back to an environment that is dis-easy and uneasy, then it is not going to happen with ease.
Amen, family. Seriously, that's what I'm talking about. I love you. Thank you so much, y'all. Don't forget, again, rate, review, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button. If you're on iTunes, leave us a review, a 5-star review, so that we can get this in front of more people. We love you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Be easy, be free, and don't forget,
integration is not optional.